That canal that they dredged looks like a mess about now, doesn't it, behind the post office?
Yeah.
I don't know, this is ridiculous.
The,
It's crazy.
until we move the post office, we cannot complete, the question was the canal looks, or the comment was the canal looks like a mess right now behind the post office. And until we complete relocation of the post office, we can't complete the canal project. Actually, about half of the post office building and all of that street that runs behind and on the side of the post office will become wetland again. That'll all be dredged out. And we'll be completing the turnaround, boat turnaround area on that property. That's why the project, or the post office, has held up efforts to complete that. So you're right, it looks like a mess. I apologize. We'll fix it as soon as we can. Yes?
Where is the piece of land for the senior center?
The question is, where is the piece of land for the senior center? The senior center is acquiring, I'm only getting a second hand. I'm not actively involved in it, but senior center is in the process of acquiring property at the southwest, essentially the southwest corner of Lost Lake, adjacent to the VFW.
Right. South of VFW.
And I think there are a number of homes that are being acquired for that project, and they've submitted preliminary plans to the city for review and approval. That's about all I know about the project. Yes, sir.
Bill Voss, can you comment on the abandonment of the Dakota line and how is there any plans to realign it with the downtown project?
The question is in regard to the Dakota line or Dakota rail, and what the status, I think, of the railroad is on that line, and if the railroad goes away, what happens. Again, I'm only reading about this, but I've been talking to folks who are more integrally involved with this project. The Dakota Rail, or Rail America, I think, is the company that owns that line today. They have informed the state, informed the users of the rail line that it's a money loser, and it'll be their intent at some point, unless money is pumped into it or unless the line is sold, to close rail service down on that line. I think it goes between Minneapolis and Hutchinson, if I'm correct, if I'm not mistaken. So if that line were to close down and rail use were to cease on that line, the MnDOT has stated that they will retain ownership of that right-of-way, or of that corridor. So I guess there's the opportunity, if the communities along the line feel strongly enough, an opportunity to get a trail put through there. That's what, there's a group being organized to try and accomplish that. It would have, I think, tremendous benefits for downtown Mound. As far as relocation or kind of altering of the location of that line, it may become an opportunity if the rail were to close down, but what MnDOT may be thinking in the back of their mind, at least, is that someday that could be a commuter rail line or a LRT line, if LRT ever goes anywhere. So they may want to maintain kind of the straightness of that corridor for the possibility of future rail or transit on that corridor. I don't know at this point. Yes, sir.
How would the new 15 cross the tracks over there? And then it's got the oil tanks behind there.
Right. The question is, how would the new realigned County Road 15 cross the tracks, and how would it deal with the bulk oil plant company that's in to the north of the tracks? The bulk oil plant would be purchased as part of the roadway realignment and relocated. The County Road 15 would cross the railroad tracks essentially at Belmont Avenue. This location, that location right there. And then it would align with Linwood Boulevard, approximately where the backside of Commerce Place is, somewhere in that area. The difficulty in doing this roadway realignment project is that there's a grade difference between the existing street and the railroad. So we'll be constructing, if the railroad is still in place when we do the street project, we'll be constructing the street back a ways more toward probably the edge of the Reed and Pond office, and then gradually building grade up on the street so that it can cross at grade with the railroad in this location. We also have an issue, a difficulty in the relocation of the street, in that it has to be as close to 90-degree crossing as possible, just for safety reasons. And so we're we have to really shift County Road 15 more north-south than we would otherwise want to do. We'd rather make this a more gradual curve, but it's just not possible with the railroad in place. Yes, ma'am.
What's the time frame for the buildings being changed, moved, or whatever for Auditors Road?
Auditors Road, we expect to be under construction by the summer of 2001, so the summer of next year, a little more than a year. And move in would be concurrent with the completion of County Road 15. So they'd have about a 1-year build-out time for those buildings. And then what they want to do is time the move-in, the tenant move-in of the buildings with the opening of the new County Road 15. So that would be about September, October of 2002. So it's about a year construction period.
Do the tenants of those buildings or the owners of Auditors, I know Dr. Lauer, and I don't know that he has heard anything. When do they tell the people about all this?
Well, the City Council held a couple of informational meetings in 1999. We're sending out information along with, I think, the water bill. Many of you have probably gotten that. It's a question and answer, just a little kind of a progress sheet with that. But it's difficult to know when is the best time to begin talking with property owners and business owners. It's a challenging question because we found that if we're too early before the curve, it causes a lot of stress. If we're too late, it causes a lot of stress. And it's a difficult question. It's something that we struggle with, so I appreciate the question. Yes.
Just so you know, it's already causing stress, whether you
Oh, I
talk
know.
to us or not. When is my building scheduled to be torn down?
Your building, the question is when would
Main Street Market.
Main Street Market be taken as part of the redevelopment project? Main Street Market would be acquired, the building that is in would be acquired as part of the County Road 15 relocation project. So acquisition is scheduled for 2001, demolition is scheduled for 2002.
And then is there anything being done about preserving parking for us and Sky V's and laundromat during the coast-to-coastness?
Yes, the city is doing, as part of the coast-to-coast True Value redevelopment project, I'll repeat the question. The question was, what are we doing about parking within the coast-to-coast area to ensure that we don't create hardship for the businesses that are there? The city is doing a bit of a land swap with Mound Family Hardware. They'll be building in a portion of the current parking lot in front of their building. And in order to keep parking viable within that district, the city is going to be building a municipal lot where the current True Value store is, and then around to the back of that. And that'll remain until the county road is relocated.
So during the reconstruction, during the building,
Of
the coast-to-coast customers
right.
will park behind coast-to-coast? Is that what you're saying?
Well,
Because right now, there's barely enough parking in there for
Right.
Main Street and Scotty V's and laundromat and coast to coast. Well, if coast to coast building starts getting built this summer, that's gonna take a huge chunk of parking for not only my business, but the two businesses next to me. So is there something to be done so that area is roped off where maybe parking could be behind the coast to coast or the
There will
coast to
be.
coast during that time?
it will be. But the existing store obviously will remain in place,
Right,
so we
I
have that issue.
understand that, I just wanna make sure that I'm not gonna end up suffering or Scotty V's suffering, because we all need that parking lot, including Ben Franklin, and we all need that parking, and it's really gonna be cutting down on our parking during that whole construction phase.
Yeah. Well, we'll be doing coordination with you and with the property owners that own your building to try and make this as painless as possible. Yeah.
Regarding the sites of the hotel, has there been discussion of the city to recreate or create a destination hotel like the old Hotel Del Otero or the Big Island hotels at the turn of the century?
I think that's what many of us have in mind. We envision creating more of an inn than a hotel. And it's possible, I suppose, that it could be a B&B, although I think it'll be larger than that. So I think inn is the correct term to use, and what many of us envision for that site And the intent, I think, all along has been to recreate one of the Lake Minnetonka historic hotels. Bill?
So I own that property on 110 and 15, and I plan on tearing it down and doing rebuilding there. Now, do I get any help from attachment from the financing?
No, at this point, the question is, for Mr. Netka, he intends to build a new building on his site in the Langdon district. And the city council, or the city currently has a preliminary development agreement with Beard Group, which says that the city will only assist with public financing a project that they have in place. If Beard Group, for whatever reason, were to go away, or that preliminary development agreement were to be negated, then there's the opportunity for you to do that.
Well, the Misa building and the Kenny building, they're going to get some help.
Only through the redevelopment program that is part of the Beard development.
So I get penalized because I don't belong to the Beard development.
Not necessarily. Your property would be acquired as part of the redevelopment project. And,
I don't want to sell it.
well, that's the difficulty of redevelopment, unfortunately.
Let's just take my property that I've had for the last 45 years.
I thought it was on the market.
It's not on the market.
Oh. Yes, sir.
Could you explain why, give me a context as to a developer, the word developer. What does that mean? The Bear Group give us experience, a concentric view of a developer and what they actually do. It seems like they go in and condemn property, build up a building with public increment financing, and they're out and they made a lot of money. Explain to us why you chose Bear and the full depth of what they're going to bring to the table for the city of Mound.
Okay. The Beard Group is a development company that does, whether they're residential or commercial projects or multi-tenant or multi-use projects, puts together projects that, in this particular case, the Beard Group, puts together a very complex project. And I keep hearing from everyone involved in this project that this is the most complex redevelopment project they've ever seen. And it is complex. There are a lot of current owners. There are a lot of businesses that are involved. It is a complex project. So what they bring to the table is the expertise in putting together a redevelopment project like this. They're the ones that put together the financing. Really, tax increment financing is used as a gap financing tool. It's a very small portion of the overall development cost of this project. The developer has very strong ties with retailers, with restaurateurs, with housing developers that he'll team with to do the housing portion of it. So he brings to us the market savvy that will sell this project. And there's always the possibility that the developer, once they build the project, will sell out and go away. And the city hasn't, or I don't think can, tie the Beard Group to ownership of this project after it's constructed. But the developer has a history and a track record of holding on to properties that they've built. Such as where the Big Ten is in Hopkins, Big Ten restaurant and movie theater. That's a project that they constructed about 4 or 5 years ago, I believe. It's been extremely successful. There's a coffee shop, there's the Big Ten restaurant, a movie theater, a couple other retail users, and some office users in that project. That's on Main Street in Hopkins. It's a very traditional downtown development project. They continue to own it and manage it and do so very successfully. Another example that is currently underway, which is actually closer to what we're talking about in Mound, is a project they're doing in Robbinsdale. But that's currently under construction, so there's no history on that project for management. They also do, if any of you work at, or go to the downtown Minneapolis area, Chevy's Restaurant, which opened up on a very unsafe block at the time on Hennepin Avenue in downtown Minneapolis. They opened a Chevy's and built a Chevy's Restaurant on that block. It's been extremely successful. It's pushed crime completely away from that district. We've heard from the Minneapolis Police Department. It's completely turned around that block in downtown. They build Chevy's restaurants across the country. That's an important client of theirs.
I mean, I just think it's important to understand that when they signed the contract with the city of Mound, it's not like they just are gonna build these shell buildings and then go, oh, we're gonna find tenants, and we're gonna find people to operate businesses in there. They come to the table with relationships that are gonna provide economic resources to the community. And that's something that individual owners can't do
Right,
for the city.
right.
And that context has been lost in all discussions. I'm very skeptical, and have been very skeptical, but I see the plan. I'm very, very, very pleased.
I appreciate your comments. And then,
Really good for the city,
Right.
long term.
what you talk about is very important for us to keep in mind and for everyone to keep in mind. And frankly, that's a point or a comment that I often overlook because I'm so close to this project. But the things that the Beard Group, for instance, or other developers do bring to the table are those relationships with retailers and the market savvy in order to sell and make this project successful. Yes?
Do you have any knowledge of the city liquor store moving out of the shopping center site and what other property they might be looking for?
At this point, there's been no discussion of moving the liquor store, although it has been something that frankly we've talked about in the redevelopment discussions that we've had. Whether or not it would happen, I don't know. And as far as where, we don't know either. Yes, sir?
When a developer comes in and puts together a whole development like we're talking about, it sounds like he's retaining ownership of the entire building, whole complex. Does he have the discretion to sell them properties back to individual merchants? It seems like we're giving a private ownership of, obviously you own the business, but you don't own the property that the business is on, you're subsequently leasing. Can he, during provision, either preventing him or encouraging them to sell them the spaces that a business might occupy back at the lease owner?
Well, the question was, if the Beard Group comes in and does a development, it sounds like they would be the owner of a larger block of building, displacing individual owners right now. The developer has established a limited liability partnership as part of this redevelopment project. Some people may be interested in investing in that limited liability partnership, others may not. The response that we've gotten from local businesses and property owners hasn't been that great on this particular project. So I don't know if there will be a tremendous amount of local investment into that limited liability partnership. The thing that's very difficult to put together on redevelopment projects like this is that unless they have enough critical mass to support the financing that is being sought, either from private financiers or through public financing of tax increment financing, it's very difficult to try and put this critical mass of a project together. And the other component of this is that in order to draw the types of retailers and housing tenants and buyers into downtown Mound that we're anticipating drawing, it's going to require a significant critical mass of complete turnaround of the downtown area. And if we look at redevelopment of the downtown area on a building by building basis or a block by block basis, the level or the quality of tenants that we'll see that will be interested will not be that great. And it will not be the type of redevelopment project that the community has said they're interested in putting together. As far as sale of individual spaces, there's the possibility, I suppose, of creating what's called office condominiums or retail condominiums that could potentially be resold to retailers or office users. The developer has not indicated that he would be doing that as part of this project. He is talking about for sale townhomes. That would be kind of a separate structure from the retail, higher density residential structures that he'll be building. But as far as sale of individual pieces of that, no. Yes, sir.
Bruce, one other question. Refresh my memory of what's happening to John's Variety Store.
The question is what's happening to John's Variety Store. The block where John's Variety is, Uncharted Grounds Coffee, and a couple other businesses that escape me right now. That block is not anticipated for redevelopment right now. What we would hope is that they have a parking situation situation of a parking issue that they need to deal with on that block as well. And there may come a time when the city becomes involved in that to try and support that effort. But the hope would be that through the redevelopment of the rest of the quadrants or the rest of the districts in the downtown area, that the level of investment that that block is going to see is going to increase significantly. And it has that downtown character, and the buildings are very handsome in many respects.
But there's no place to park.
There's no place to park right now. It's going to have to be dealt with at some point. Yes, sir.
You were talking about entertainment before and revitalizing. Has any thought been given to put a cinema down there, a movie theater?
The question is, has any thought been given to putting a cinema in downtown Mound? Yes, it has. We talked with the Beard Group, since they have experience with movie theaters, talked with them early on in the process about that, because a number of people in the community have brought it up as something they'd like to see. The response that we've gotten is that the movie industry is revolutionizing. If you've seen any new movie theaters that are being built, they're 12 to 25 screens. They have gigantic parking lots, and it just doesn't fit with a downtown redevelopment amount.
The smaller one wouldn't work, huh?
No, evidently not. They just aren't successful. Yes, Tom?
Hi, this is in the shore zone, and you talked earlier about retail or commercial or the first level with 3 stories of housing, but you've got height restrictions in that shore zone that would preclude that.
That's right. The question was, this is within the shoreline setback area, the shoreline zone, and there's right now a height limit of 35 feet within, I think that's midway up the roof line or something like that, within that area. Mound is currently talking with the DNR about changing its zoning code, and that's one of the issues that we're addressing. And it's not going to be an easy one either. Yes?
We moved in Mound last year, and we're like super excited about this. This is great for us. Is there anything else that we could do with volunteers?
You bet. Yes, definitely. The Economic Development Commission is... No, I'm sorry. They moved into Mound last year. They're excited about the project, and they're wondering if there's anything that they can do from a volunteer standpoint. The Economic Development Commission has been the commission in the community that has really driven and overseen this redevelopment effort. They have monthly meetings at 7 a.m. at Mound City Hall, the third Thursday of every month. And that's the group that is kind of the touch point or the beginning point for volunteerism on the redevelopment project. But if you would come up to me after the meeting, and I'll give you my card, and you give me a call, we'll find a way. Because there have been so many people involved in volunteering on this project over the last 9 years that has been tremendous. It's what's kept this thing alive. And we welcome anyone who's interested in volunteering. Jerry.
On the post office, I want to get back to that, because I know that's a hang-up. Does the city of Mound own any property that they could put the post office on?
Question is, in regard to the post office, does the city of Mound own any property that they could put the post office on? The answer, I guess, is yes. City of Mound could put the post office on the Lost Lake site. And we actually talked to the city council, threw that out as an option in a recent meeting. And the overwhelming response was, that doesn't make sense, because the post office, even though it's important to keep it in the downtown area, it's the amount of revenue that it generates is fairly low. The amount of parking that it requires is very high. And that site is so important to creating this kind of guest destination for the downtown area that it would consume too much of the site for it to be viable. So we threw that out as an option. It just didn't seem to make sense. Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Is that the only area?
Of city-owned property, I think it is.
Who owns that on the other side of Belmont and Linwood, on that corner where we're going to have the youth
That's Belmont.
Belmont, going over the railroad tracks?
Yeah.
There's a corner across from the city garage.
Right, Dave Willett is one owner on that site. United Properties owns another piece.
Regarding your post office, I was in there not too long ago talking to one of the people at the window, the gal that's been there a million years, and I said, "What's happening with you?" And I said, "I recall an article that stated that the Excelsior post office and was moving to Chanhassen or somewhere, Chaska, and that this would be a substation up here, and Excelsior would be a substation, that the trucks wouldn't be running out of it, et cetera, et cetera. Has that all gone by the way of the wolf, or what?
The question is, or the comment is that he had heard that the Mound and Excelsior post offices would be substations of the Chanhassen distribution
Chanhassen,
facility.
Jasper, somewhere there, wherever it is.
I have not heard that, and we've been talking with the local postmaster as well as the real estate folks routinely and regularly at the Postal Service, and they haven't indicated that this would be a substation or anything. It's possible that I don't know the terminology that they use. I know that the Chanhassen facility is a regional distribution facility.
That's what they were talking about, putting their trucks out of there and
Right.
things of that nature.
But there's still a need, the Postal Service has said we need 2 docks on this facility, so they still have trucks coming in. Maybe it's not as much as it would be if that Chanhassen facility weren't there, I'm not sure.
Maybe this is far-fetched, but what about the old high school site? Is there any way that the post office could go in there?
That's one of the sites that's under consideration, a portion of that site. And the question again was, what about the whole old high school site for the post office? And that is a site that's under consideration. Frank?
How much does the city stand losing if we don't get on with the post office?
Yeah.
There's been an amount said about it and that.
Right.
And all this stuff that we've been listening to today says, well, when the post office goes in, well, when we get this spot for the post office. Why don't we get off from it? Why don't we say, hey, tomorrow we're going to build the post office and we're going to do it here or we're going to do it there? Is visions. After a while, you have to wear glasses. The vision. Well, that is a typical answer. That's very typical. If we're going to do something, let's do it. The next time we'll put it where everybody else wants it. But this time, let's put it someplace and get on with the whole development.
Here, here.
That are holding back, that they say when the post office goes in, I want this spot. If you remember back in 1991, some guy that didn't have as gray hair as he's got now said, you show me where the post office is and I'll buy all 4 lots directly around that thing and make a fortune off them this year. Now it looks like what we want is them to put their buildings in and then we'll put the post office in. That ain't gonna work. We've got to get that post office in so that the rest of this stuff can go and fall in place where it has.
Right.
But I would like a figure shown of how much time have we got before we don't complete, if we don't complete this post office deal, we're going to lose some money on it. We're going to lose heavy on it.
Right.
How long have we got, and what are we going to do if we don't get it? Is there a possibility that Spring Park, Wayzata, Excelsior will become a Mound post office? No.
Well, the first question was, what do we stand to lose if the post office doesn't get relocated? And we stand to lose half of the grant monies that we have, that the city has coming to it, $500,000, if the post office is not relocated by about June of next year. And we are not allowed to start the Greenway project. So that's what we have from a monetary, kind of a hard cost monetary standpoint, that's what we have to lose. And we essentially have 45 days to work out an agreement with the Postal Service for a new site and to have control of that site to begin the process for relocation to that new site.
We need 44 days, tomorrow 43 days the next day.
Right.
And if we're gonna sit like we are now, you might as well say today is 44th day.
Well, I better go get to work.
That's right, Bruce.
Frank, I appreciate your comments. Thank you very much.
Does the city own that property?
Which one?
The post office property?
City currently owns the post office.
Everything else around here, condemn the post office. Get them out of there.
The Postal Service also has condemnation authority, and they supersede the cities. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any idea what year this visionary project will be completed?
The question.
How many years will it be under construction?
The question is, we know when the Mound Visions program essentially will be completed. And really the last phase of the redevelopment project is really scheduled in line with the relocation of County Road 15. Well, I'll step back from that. The commercial or the retail portion of downtown redevelopment is scheduled in line with County Road 15, and that's 2002. But it's possible now that the hotel could be sometime after that. So redevelopment of the hotel district and the hotel itself could come after that portion of the project. But essentially, 2 years. 2 years is when we anticipate this work being done.
Well, keep taking my vitamins.
Oh, definitely.
If I found a place to move my business, like right now, whether it's in Mound or out of Mound, would I get paid to move, or do I have to wait till the deadline day?
You would, in order to get public assistance with relocation, you would have to wait for a public body, and in your case, that would be the county, to acquire your property, acquire the property you're in.
So from the time they acquire me to the time they tear me down and say I have to get out, how much time do I have?
Well, that'll depend on kind of the amount of time process, but what we're looking at is trying to leave a period of 5 to 6 months for that to occur with the redevelopment projects in the downtown area.
See, I've been through this before and I was given 28 days to vacate.
I believe the law doesn't allow that anymore, number one. And it is the city's intent to be a significantly longer period of time. Yes?
In regards to, were they going to rebuild the bridge on Bartlett Boulevard to accommodate excursion boats, or is it adequate enough as it is?
The question is are we anticipating rebuilding the Bartlett Boulevard Bridge for boat access? It's surprising how large boats can get under that current bridge. I'm continually surprised. From what I understand, for the most part, dual props and fly decks, boats with those components, usually are too large to get under the bridge. But most of the boats on Lake Minnetonka can get under. And the excursion boat that I talked about, that old rickety one, does fit under the bridge. It's got a low draft, and it's got a single deck on the top with a canopy on it, and it fits under the bridge.
Right, but what about some of the excursion boats coming from YZ or Excelsior? I mean, the whole intent is to draw people into the retail market.
Right. That really would bring the type of boating on the canal to a different level. Ellen Alma's dinner boats won't fit under the bridge. And, the really large, the Minnehaha doesn't fit. The really large excursion boats do not fit under the bridge. And you're right, if we want to try and bring in that level of boating activity, which I think in many ways changes the character of the Lost Lake Canal, and I think that'd be something that cities really want to think about, whether or not they want to make it that large of a facility. So no, it doesn't currently allow it, and there are no plans to rebuild the bridge.
How deep was that canal dredged?
It's dredged 6 feet deep.
6 feet. Now, who's going to monitor it every year?
The monitor?
Yes, because that swamp is going to fill it back in.
Right. We anticipate a reoccurring dredge project every 10 to 12 years. So it'll be skimmed just like other canals around the lake.
How do you figure that water level at 6 feet?
6 feet is taken from the ordinary high water, which is 929.
Ordinary high water.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So we fully know that in years when the lake level is low and the climate is dry, boat traffic will not be able to get up Lost Lake Canal.
Right.
And that'll be something that the community can address at that time if you want to try and push the DNR to dredge it deeper. We don't know, but what we do know is that our permit allows us to go 6 feet below the ordinary high. Yes?
What is going to happen to the Longview building and the House of Moy and that area?
We anticipate that all the buildings on the Auditors Road District will be torn down as part of the redevelopment project. Yes, Sally?
I have 2 questions. One, what do you assume to be the completion amount of time for coast-to-coast building? 6 months before completion. The second question would be, could you explain, as a business owner on Auditors Road, the relationship as far as who is going to be negotiating with us? Is it going to be Beard? Is it going to be the city? Could you just explain that role and the two roles that you have with each other versus business owners?
First question was, what's the anticipated completion of the coast-to-coast true value development? And the second question is, what's the relationship between the developer and the city, and who's going to be negotiating with property owners? As far as completion, I think it's the intent of Bruce and Patty to be in their new store by October 1st. Is that right, Bruce? So that building, we're on schedule with that building, be in the ground by the end of May, and moved in by October 1. And as far as the second question, who's going to be negotiating with the property owners? The way we've discussed it, it could happen either way. It either could be representatives of the city negotiating with property owners for acquisition, or it could be the developer. And the way we've discussed it with the Beard Group to date is that he would take the first round of negotiations on his own and try and acquire those properties privately or between he and the property owner. If negotiations do not proceed or do not go forward, then the city would get involved and try and negotiate, or if necessary, go through condemnation.
In that case, then, so Beard, it would be Beard's money paying for the site, not the city's money?
Well, yes and no. This is viewed as a redevelopment project, so no matter who is actually doing the negotiating, the city is still involved integrally. So the city is still considered a publicly financed redevelopment project, no matter who negotiates.
Yeah, where's the money come from? I'm still confused.
I know.
So, but in the end, Beard owns all those
Right.
locations that get torn down. But so, whose money is it then? Is it the city's money or is it Beard's money?
Oh, that's complex to answer. The city will be bringing a certain portion of dollars to the table for the overall financing package. And there are certain things that the city's financing can and cannot pay for. One thing that it can pay for is acquisition. Another thing it can pay for is demolition. Something it cannot pay for is the construction of the new buildings. So it all comes out in the wash, but there are certain things that the city's dollars can and cannot pay for.
So in the end, does Beard pay you money for whatever you put into the pot at that time? The city?
I've got to think about it for a second.
Because if
No.
Beard owns it in the end, the city doesn't get that money back?
Let's say, the question is, well, it's hard to repeat the question, but let's say that the city is doing the acquisition. The city will use tax increment financing proceeds to acquire those properties. And then the city would demolish the properties and sell those properties in a vacant state to the developer. If the developer acquires, then the city would reimburse the developer for acquisition and reimburse the developer for demolition. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Tax increment financing is a financing tool that cities have available to them, just through the city. Because the city has a redevelopment agreement with Beard Group. Yes?
I would like to know if there's going to be any incentive or help in design work for renovating those buildings that are left standing along Landon and Lost Lake. Some of them are definitely eyesores, and I think if you want your community to draw people, you want it to be aesthetically pleasing, and that Williams building with the sheets hanging up is absolutely despicable.
Right.
And it's been that way for many years. I've only lived here 4, but I'm sure it's been that way for 20 years.
The question is, will there be assistance given to properties that are not part of the tear down and redevelopment project to upgrade their facades? And City Council did express interest through the tax increment financing plan that they approved back in December to provide that type of assistance. Until we actually do the redevelopment projects and know how much money, if any, is left over to do extra things like that, we don't know the extent that will go. But there was an interest expressed by the City Council.
But can't you appeal to some of these people to at least pick up the trash and go after them as a city? I know you
I guess I'm not involved in that type of thing, so I'm not sure.
I mean, this doesn't help your downtown look when you've got
Right.
stuff like that.
I think, my personal opinion is that when redevelopment occurs in the downtown area, there's going to be a whole different energy going on with the way people take care of properties, the level of investment that you're going to see in properties, and just the overall flavor of the downtown area and the areas adjacent to it.
The other thing is by the John's Ride store, I've gone there to look at flowers, and there's debris back in there. I don't know if that's the railroad's responsibility, but that doesn't look very nice, and that could be quite pretty along the street. So someone needs to look at those things too.
I would just like to say, I'm a friend of Frank Weiland, and I totally agree with him. I've lived here since 1954, over by the island. Now I live in an apartment building, which is nice. And I, of course, you know, I run the food shelf. My heart is in Mound. I see all this, and I hope it'll happen soon, because I'm 82.
I hope it'll happen soon because I'm 35. Yes, Jerry?
Bruce, I'm with her, I've lived here since 1945. But what I see a conflict here. You're telling me that we can't build on Lake Landing because you want to make money. But you're telling me you're going to lose $500,000 because we're going to lose the post office.
Right.
What's the logic?
Well, the logic is that there's a lot more to be gained than $500,000.
What's going to be gained out there? What is so special about that area that's going to be gained?
Well, the fact that it's along the waterfront, the newly created canal.
Nice place for post office.
It's also a very nice place for people to be introduced to downtown Mound. And if we can accomplish our goal of creating a banquet facility there as well as a hotel facility, the upside is a lot greater than the downside of the post office relocation. Plus, we're going to find a site for the post office in the next 45 days. So.
Yes. What happened to the post office location you talked about a year ago? I think it was planned over in the Langdon corner.
Right. The question is, what happened to the post office location we had planned a year ago? And what happened is that we signed a preliminary development agreement with Beard Group. And his development vision for that site includes a tremendous amount of housing. And with the truck traffic that the post office generates, it's not conducive to the development that he's looking at. So at that point, we immediately began looking elsewhere. Yes, sir.
Is County 15, they're gonna be the same width as it is now, or is it going to be wider?
It'll be wider.
How much wider? Be about a 3-lane almost?
No, the driving lanes, I think on County Road 15, currently there are 2 lanes in each direction,
Right.
I think. That'll remain the same, but there will very likely be a center median, so that'll expand the width of the roadway.
Then what's gonna happen to, oh, okay, that's gonna be starting where? From Tonka, where Tonka used to be?
Yeah, approximately. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Don McCarville. I was just going to give a kind of a warning to the people that are being displaced. You kind of think things are going fairly well, and it doesn't go as well as you think it is. I'd kind of recommend you all get together fairly early on and maybe hire a lawyer right away. I've been through it down in Chaska, lost my business, did not get enough money from the city to rebuild. And so I just recommend that you all get together early on, and I'm not fighting the project, but they separate you all. And then you sign an agreement not to talk to anybody about what you did. So it might not hurt early on to get together and hire a lawyer early.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're part of our, the question is, has the Metropolitan Transit been approached for the park and ride and other transit issues? And they're integrally involved with the design and the coordination of this park and ride that we're planning for the Lost Lake site. So, yeah.
What about a combination coffee shop, park and ride?
No, the agreement that we worked out with the transit, Metropolitan Transit, is that they'll have an easement for use of that facility. Right. No. Larry?
My wife has a question, will there be a fitness center somewhere?
Not for me. I think your wife should get together with the folks who want a community center. Put some political pressure on it. I think we're past our time that we said we would let you go. I appreciate your comments and appreciate you taking your time this morning.